Hey, so I'm doing this video in response to the commentary that's starting to go around talking about we are not our ancestors. So I seen that commentary in two places. First, it was in a photo on social media of a young person holding up a sign that said, "We are not our ancestors, we will fuck you up." They were at a protest and whatnot. Obviously, teenager, young adult, right? So I didn't think much of it at that level of it, simply for the fact that, one, you are a youth, so you may not have as much historical context, but then and really only thing you do have is the context of that, nonviolent, MLK, blah, 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 because that's the only black history that they tend to teach in public schools. So that's one. Now, recently, I just watched a video that somebody posted on social media where she's advocating for a one-day boycott, which is weak in the first place. Let me go there. To just do one day. A minimum of 2 weeks is really what's needed. But in the comments, she's now saying the same thing. In the video where she's promoting it, saying, we are not our ancestors. We need to allocate our... I'm like, hold on, pause now. So I want y'all to recognize what the history is associated with, what our ancestors have done in association to boycotts. First of all, when you're talking about the Montgomery bus boycott, it wasn't no one day. That bus boycott was something like 200, 300 days to the point where you had grandmas walking their shoes off because they would not betray the movement. So they were still doing footwork. They still had to get some physical edge up in there, whether they was going to work, going to see family or whatever, in a state that's hot as hell. So now that the context, you see the context, and not only that, the person in the damn video was a whole grown-ass adult, and I was like, oh no, now that's a whole problem. And what's worse is that the person that made the stupid comment was a black woman, educator of our children. That's the miseducation that they don't need right there. You know what I'm saying? So when you're talking about what our ancestors have done, let me tell you something. There were 3 wars off of the west coast of the African continent. So what ancestors are you talking about? Let us be specific right about now, because they're rolling over in their graves hearing people repeat this foolishness, because straight up, like, yo, they put in work. Now what is something that we need to check is we have not been allowed, and this is where I'm a little forgiving, we have not been allowed to learn our history. We have not been allowed to learn our freaking culture. So as a result, of course, why would our oppressors teach us about the different occasions that we regularly put out of resistance? This ain't the first time riots done happened in New York. It happened in the 80s, it happened in the 70s, it happened it literally happens every single decade because we not with the shits. It's always been this way. This is not new. I want y'all to recognize our ancestors have always resisted. And as a matter of fact, the reason that we even had the emancipation happen in the 1800s was because you had uprisings happening every other day, to the point that white folks were straight scared for their lives. That's why. But we have to learn our history, and we have to continue to put that forward, to understand, like, yo, son, our ancestors put in that work. They put in that motherfucking work towards goddamn freedom. And even the ones, and let's even now be specific to the ancestors that may not have been on the front line. First of all, we're having that conversation now about how, there are other ways to support the movement besides being on the front line. Because if everybody's a foot soldier, who's going to make sure that we have longevity after the demonstrations and the street battles are over? So there are different aspects to this work, and all of them must be done. Not one, all of them. All of them in totality, because that's how you win. You don't win working on just one section of the work. You win having people in different committees working on all sections simultaneously. You got to hit them from every angle at the same time. That's how you win, and that's why working as a collective is important, and recognize that everybody has a different aspect of this work that they got to do. But now, let's even be specific to some of our ancestors that, were not on the front line throughout the ages, baby. Whether you're talking about pre-enslavement, post, or during the transatlantic slave trade, or post. Survival is a skill. Survival is a big ass skill, and it's whole necessary. Because if we didn't have the ancestors that weren't on the front lines, that had to really just focus on survival, allowed you to exist today. you wouldn't be in existence because they would have been dead and couldn't have gave birth to your black ass. Like, that's some real shit. And I say this, you know, listen, man, I say this being the rambunctious one in my family, coming from siblings who coming from, you know, having relatives that may or may not be about this life. And you know, that's not the way that they push for a whole host of different reasons. But in hindsight, I understand. Because it's like, you gonna, like, if I'm coming from off of the front line, I'm gonna need somebody to heal my wounds. I'm gonna need somebody to support me emotionally. I'm gonna need somebody to support me spiritually. So that's the other half for the people who are on the front lines. You got folks that's out here doing that work. That's a part of the work. That's a piece of the work towards the whole goal. So I need us to recognize, like, yo, son, not only are we our ancestors, but that's a motherfucking thing. That's something to be proud of every goddamn day. I'm about to get on this bus and go handle my business, but that's my word for y'all. For real, please make sure we pass that information on and get it right.